We are happy, guys, to have a good friend back on the show for the first time in a few weeks after a much-deserved break. Miss Danielle Shay, VP of Options over at Simpler Trading, back with us on a Monday to give us her thoughts here on what has been a pretty exciting afternoon. There she is. Great to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
It's been a few weeks here. How was your vacation, first of all?
It was amazing. I went up to the Pacific Northwest, up into the San Juan Islands, and it was absolutely beautiful. Different trading hours for sure, but I enjoyed it quite a bit.
You picked a great week to come back, by the way. So let's jump right into a few things here. Obviously, this Apple event still underway. They're talking hardware now when it comes to this Vision Pro, but tell me, how long will it be until you're walking around with one of these headsets on?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe quite a while still.
I mean, it seems really cool. The idea behind it, I think, is really cool. But I think people are having a little bit of difficulty swallowing the size, maybe, of the actual device. Maybe I'm crazy, but I mean, successful event overall, right across the board. Lots of new software announced, lots of new ideas announced for the software side of things. All-time highs this morning for the stock. A little bit of sell the news coming in here.
So, when you look at Apple, I absolutely love the new all-time highs. I mean, I think looking at this and especially comparing it with Microsoft, I mean, Microsoft has got to go up and retest that previous high and make a new all-time high as well. As it relates to Apple, I mean, I think that the best thing about the all-time high is just the impact that it can have on the market. I mean, are we in a bear market anymore or not? You've got Apple at a new all-time high. So I think right here at this moment in time, the most important thing to do is look at the momentum after the event, because so often, as you mentioned, you get the sell the news type of situation. So I would be very cautious with any kind of Apple longs. I do own Apple stock, but at this point, I am looking for a pullback in the NASDAQ because I just feel like most of the catalysts have already occurred. We have the Fed coming up. Everything is very extended. So I would love to try to capture some downside momentum if it appears.
And I mean, for those who are obviously still sitting on the long side as well, maybe a good time to take a little bit off possibly
Yes.
for the next few weeks. Give me your thoughts here. Spatial computing, new term from Apple that they're wrapping this entire VR idea in. Spatial computing, kind of cool.
Hey, man, it sounds cool. I'm all about the way of the future, especially if AI is going to continue sending the NASDAQ up 30% or more, I'm all for it.
You bring up a very good point in that here's Apple at all-time highs, and they haven't even talked about AI at this point as far as anyone is concerned. Apple, the type of company, obviously, that is never first to something, but typically when they do it, it's always the best right across the board as far as products are concerned. So more to come, obviously, from the AI side of things. So on that, let's talk about Google here, because obviously another one that's had just an amazing run up here on the back of all this AI excitement. Talk about Google.
So, I love Google. I think that Google looks great here, especially because Google is down still pretty substantially from that previous all-time high. In the beginning of the year, Google had some bad news. We were comparing Microsoft and Google ChatGPT versus Bard, and Google got hit again. But, recently we've seen a lot of positive news out of Google. And I mean, Google has YouTube. And we've also seen just really positive trade in this stock. So on the shorter term, we've seen a really nice shift off of the lows. It's been consolidating. I think that consolidation is going to continue to break out and go higher. I've been trading it with my target up into about 130 just on a shorter term. But on a longer term, I'm continuing to buy the shares of this stock because, normally I do like those relative strength names like Apple, and those are especially great for, momentum trading. But when it comes to the longer term investing, I mean, Google's still down, but it has that potential to really recover in the way that, NVIDIA has, and in the way that Apple has, and the way that Microsoft has. So, for me, Google has big potential for a longer term recovery as well. So I am trading it, and I'm also investing in it too.
I was reading an article on the weekend. You were mentioning Bard there. I was reading an article on the weekend that described it as a, what was the exact wording? Something along the lines of it's a professional copyright breaker or something along those lines. I can't remember the exact wording, but it wasn't good. It wasn't a positive review of Bard specifically versus, as you were saying, ChatGPT. If we're talking along those lines, though, let's talk about Microsoft here, because it's been all about ChatGPT to this point and continues to be, even though, I mean, it's really our only way of directly getting exposure to ChatGPT with a $100 million investment from Microsoft. Downside right now, but holding up better than the market.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft's one of my favorite stocks, one of my top 5 portfolio picks as well. And when you look at Microsoft, I mean, I have to believe that it's going to go up and kiss that 350 price point, especially going into July. So, on a shorter term basis, you have about 340. I think that's the most reasonable shorter term target. And then on a longer term target into July, we have earnings coming up again. And so typically Microsoft is going to see a pretty positive move going into earnings season, and especially likes that summer quarter as well. And so I think that it makes sense to look at Microsoft to continue trading higher up and kiss that previous high at 350. And then ideally, if we can get some positive news out of it, it can be onwards and upwards, just like Apple. So I think this is a really important stock right now. To be trading, to be focused on investing as well. I will say that, everything is so extended at this point. So you should also get ready for a pullback and be careful with longs. But when we do finally see that pullback, I think what it's going to do is I think it's just going to set us up for some longs going into that earnings season in July.
And I think, I mean, it's a great point in the sense that a pullback, not necessarily a bad thing at this point, maybe even constructive right across the board for the overall market. Let's touch on that before we wrap things up here. Going back to last Friday, we get this absolutely monstrous non-farm payrolls print, second in a row, but third overall to the upside. The market shrugs it off, goes straight higher all day long, essentially, for the second time in a row. And then obviously the big event coming next week with CPI Tuesday, and then the Fed. It's that time again on Wednesday. What are your thoughts here?
So when you're looking at the CPI and the Fed, I mean, that could definitely be a catalyst to bring the market back down. I mean, I think at this point, there aren't very many catalysts left on the docket besides CPI and the Fed. And I do think that, with the strong payroll report, and we had some higher inflationary data out recently as well, I do think the Fed has the potential to raise maybe a quarter point again. And that could be a potential for the market to pull back. But I mean, I'm honestly not looking at that as a negative thing. I mean, with the market so extended, it is really difficult as a trader to get an edge at these price points when you're trying to swing trade. And so I would honestly welcome a bit of a pullback. I don't think that it's the worst thing if the Fed does end up having to raise by another quarter point. I think the market has been incredibly resilient and strong all year. We've got a low VIX. We have tech leading. The NASDAQ has just been absolutely phenomenal. So, I mean, for me, I wouldn't really look at it as, any kind of major calamity if the Fed does end up raising another quarter point.
At the past couple of meetings here where they've come out in that direction and the market says ho-hum expected at this point, still a ton of data coming out as well suggesting that that might be the case. If there's one maybe area, I mean, as we mentioned, it's the tech side of things, it's the NASDAQ specifically. If there's one area outside of that, we were talking a little bit last week how if you remove all of these, the big tech names, the S&P is up about 1-2% on the year. Is there an area in the market specifically that you're kind of watching with maybe some patience, looking for some opportunities?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, especially when I look at my longer term account as well, it's important to have a little bit of balance. And I have been looking in consumer staples. So it's not the most exciting area, but, you do have Walmart and you have Costco. Both of those stocks are consolidating. They give pretty decent dividends. And I think on the longer term basis, especially with everything that's going on in the economy right now, I mean, these companies are going to continue to be strong and those stocks will continue going higher. Costco just had earnings recently, and after earnings, we saw a really nice burst higher. It's been in consolidation for a while. So I'm looking for that consolidation to break out. Now, it's not, going to be like trading the semiconductors or anything, but sometimes that's what you need. You just need a nice little bit quiet, nice little boost higher. And so if we do end up seeing a pullback, which I do think that the semiconductors are setting up where, AMD might just break that 118 price point. And if the semis start coming down, we might start seeing some rotation into names like Staples. And then we can look at trading some of those slower names as the tech sector kind of pulls back.
To wrap things up here, I forgot to mention we were talking about this Apple headset thing. Disney with a huge move here, red to green, and then some, now up about almost 1%. Disney going to provide content on the Vision Pro headset. So taking all of their content essentially and turning it into a VR experience. Bob Iger himself showing up on the Apple presentation today. Overall, where are we at here with Disney?
So Disney is a challenging one for me here because, you're right down here on these lows. I do like the Bob Iger's back, but Disney has a lot of political problems as well, especially here in the US. You got a lot of boycotts going on, go woke, go broke kind of thing. And with Disney down on these lows, it's like right at, let's see what, 80, between 85 and 90. If those lows break, this thing is going to flush, and it's going to flush hard. I've been waiting for this stock to come back for a long time. And whether it's this announcement or anything else, it has just remained so heavy. And so for me, I've actually been looking at this and thinking, like, if it breaks 85, I've got to bail on these long-term shares because I've been wanting this thing to come back, but it's just not picking up steam at all. So I don't know. Maybe there's got to be some other catalyst that's even better because it's trying, but not there for me yet.
Yeah, a ton of positivity around that event of Bob Iger coming back in, but as you said, no follow through as of yet. Great stuff. It's wonderful to have you back. Danielle Shay is VP of Options over at Simpler Trading. Next time we'll get you in VR with headsets on, maybe. Have a great week.
Thank you. You too.